today's episode, I'm going to give you 5 tips that a motorcycle mechanic gave me that could possibly save you money and save you on repairs. Sometimes motorcycle owners don't destroy their bikes all at once. They do it slowly, and it's over time. What could have been a cheap fix ends up being a costly repair or a costly visit to a shop or a dealership. Here are the top 5 tips that a motorcycle mechanic has told me to keep your bike running in great condition, safer, and hopefully saving you a lot of money. And tip number 5, a lot of motorcycle riders miss it because it's so simple until it leaves you stranded. Now, I do want to be clear that these tips in this video, these 5 tips, they're not meant to replace your owner's manual. They're not meant to replace your service manual and or advice from a qualified mechanic. Every bike is different. There are all different types of service and maintenance habits that a good mechanic wishes that a motorcycle rider and or owner would follow. Because most of the time, keeping your bike in good shape, in good condition, it's not about doing one huge thing, it's about doing the little things consistently. This video is also for the person that's new to motorcycle riding as well, but a seasoned rider can gain knowledge from this video. So tip number 1, check your tires. Your rear tire and your front tire. I know that sounds basic, but tire maintenance and checking your tires is one of the most ignored tips that mechanics have told me about. Your tires are the only thing connecting you to the road. And I'll tell you this about that. Depending on the size of your tire, there's about a credit card space of your tire once you're moving down the road that's actually touching the road, front and rear tire. Depending. A motorcycle mechanic will tell you that tire pressure matters, and it matters more than most riders think. If your tire pressure is low, it can make your motorcycle feel heavy, it can make it feel lazy, and it can even make it feel unstable in turns. And I'll tell you this as well, I had a low tire one time and I had to drive somewhere to put air in it, and it also affected the way my suspension felt. Low tire pressure, it can wear out your tires faster and make your bike unpredictable. And if you're riding a touring bike, a bagger, or a loaded down touring bike or a bagger, and if you have a passenger on your bike, the tire pressure becomes even more important at that point because there's actually a lot more weight on the bike. So before you ride, long rides, short rides, check your tire pressure on your bike. Use a gauge of some sort. Use a digital gauge, and a lot of times I believe, personally in my opinion, the tried and true gauge is that one that looks like a pen that you can put in your pocket. You push it in, the little white bar comes out. That one right there I felt like is, in my experience, for me, has always been the most accurate. But tire pressure, it's only part of it. You actually want to check your tires. The things you want to look for: cracks in your tires, in your sidewalls, in your treads, dry rot, screws, nails. You can run your hand over the tire feeling for flat spots. That's important as well. Guys, don't only just check the front tire because it's easy. You've got to check this rear tire too. This rear tire, it does a lot of the work and it's important. So you got to get down on the ground. You got to reach up under the fender. Maybe move the bike forward or backwards just a little bit to feel for those flat spots. Feel for dry rots, cracks, screws. The mechanic told me for tip number 1 is that your tires will warn you before they fail, but you got to look at them. So that's tip number 1. Inspect your tread, inspect the tires, inspect the sidewall. Don't gamble on bad tires, because I can promise you this: new tires, they're cheaper than a crash. And tip number 2, fluids, fluid levels. Stay on top of your fluids, and I'm not talking about just the engine oil. A lot of riders sometimes believe that checking your fluids, that it starts and ends with your engine oil. And I can tell you this, yes, engine oil is huge. You absolutely want clean oil and a good clean filter. Engine oil is what keeps your engine alive. Engine oil helps with heat protection, it helps with wear. But you also need to check that primary fluid, your transmission fluid, your brake fluid, which is very important. And you've got to stay on top of them. You got to check them regularly. Know what fluids that your motorcycle uses. Know what weight it is. Know what's recommended by the owner's manual or the dealer. old fluid, contaminated fluid, or low fluid, that can turn into a costly repair. And we want to keep that from happening. And this is where a lot of riders will mess up. They'll spend a lot of money or all the money on pipes, lights, chrome bars, stereo upgrades, custom seats. And that stuff looks great. And I've done a lot of that to my bike as well. But I'll tell you this, you can't cheap out on your fluids. Your fluids are what's going to keep that motorcycle alive. All of your fluids are what's going to keep that motorcycle alive. So the tip from the motorcycle mechanic, engine oil, fluids are cheaper than a new engine. Brake fluids are cheaper than a new braking system. Transmission fluid, you know where I'm going with this. It's cheaper than a new transmission. And while you're checking those fluids, look under the bike. Look for leaks. If you see one, don't ignore it. Try to find out where that leak's coming from. And make sure that you reach out to a qualified mechanic. Check your brake lines. Check under your transmission. Check under your primary. Check under where your oil lines are, or excuse me, where your oil can is. Yeah, and even the oil lines. Check all of that. Look for leaks. Run your hand up in there. When the bike is cold, don't go on a long ride and say, OMG Ryan told me to put my hand on there and burn your little fingers off. Don't do that. Sometimes a little leak, it's going to end up being something like a gasket. For instance, I noticed one day that I had a little leak on my forks. I got a video way back on my forks, and it was a gasket that had busted. And then within a matter of, when I saw that leak, within a matter of me, I think it was a day or two before I got to the dealership, and then within a matter of a day or two, that leak started really turning into a bigger leak. But it was definitely the fork seals. I had to move indoors because my camera kept overheating. Take a look at those brake lines. If you see that your bike has left a spot of oil of some type on the ground, don't just wipe it up and forget about it. Don't ignore it. Tip number 3, it's going to be about your brakes. When it comes to your brakes, you'll never want to be surprised. Inspecting your brakes on the front end before you ride can prevent a huge surprise on the back end while you are riding, and a very dangerous situation. Brakes are one of those things that a lot of riders know that they're important. Obviously, you use them to stop, but they still wait way too long before they get their brakes serviced or changed. And you definitely don't want your first sign of bad brakes to be when you actually need good brakes. You want to look at your brake pads. Are they getting too thin? Are they wearing unevenly? By one side is wearing faster than the other side over here that you can see or touch. Do you hear squeaking? Do you hear grinding? Or do you hear scraping sounds? For your front brake, does the lever feel soft? For your rear brake, does the pedal feel soft? Is your motorcycle pulsing when you're braking? These are all signs that you need to pay attention to when it comes to your brakes. And then there's the brake fluid. Brake fluid is one of the most forgotten fluids when it comes to motorcycles. Motorcycle riders will talk about oil, what weight they're using, the type they're using, the brand they're using. I hear it all the time at bike rallies, bike nights. But here's the thing. I rarely hear people talking about brake fluid and the importance of it, what type they're using there. Brake fluid seems to get ignored until one day you actually need it. Here's an important thing to know, that over time, brake fluid, it can absorb moisture out of the air. And when that happens, your braking performance and your whole braking system can actually suffer. That's why it's very important not to treat brake fluid like it's going to last forever. A motorcycle mechanic, they're going to tell you that they care about the whole braking system, the pads, the rotors, the fluid, the lines, the levers, the pedals. And then they're going to look at whether anything looks worn or damaged. And just like other things on a motorcycle, brakes, they're usually going to give you a warning. Those warning signs can be in sound. Like I said earlier, pushing or squeezing on the brakes could feel different. But here's the thing that's dangerous about brakes. Your brakes, they can slowly get worse over time. So a lot of riders, they're not even going to notice that the dynamic of the brake is changing. So what I mean by that is that your normal can slowly become your bad normal when it comes to brakes. And I had a mechanic tell me that you don't want to find out that your brakes are bad in that split second moment when you actually need good brakes. Tip number 3, check your brake pad. Check your brake fluid. Pay attention to the lever and pay attention to the pedal. How do they feel? Don't ignore brake noises. If something feels off, reach out to a mechanic, get it checked. Tip number 4, and this one has actually happened to me, and I'll tell you the quick story after I tell you what the tip is. Your battery. Do not let your battery be the reason, like it did for me, that you're left stranded. One of the first times I went to ride with this group of riders that I met, and we were going to go on a group ride. It was somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 or 15 bikes. I show up, I turn my bike off, we pull my bike back out, then we get in line. I shut my bike off again, everybody's talking, we have a riders meeting, and then while I'm sitting in line, we sit down, I get a helmet on, all ready to go, gear on, gloves on, go to start, and my bike makes that sound. And you guys have heard it, that cranking sound where it does not want to crank, and it doesn't even sound like it's turning over. The fortunate thing for me is I was actually in the dealership parking lot. So I just pushed my bike over to the side. Of course, the riders left without me. I had to wait for the dealership to open. I actually had to wait, I want to say a couple hours for the dealership to open. And then they had to work me in because I didn't have any tools to do it myself. And so they worked me in, got me in, and I had to buy a new battery that day. Take care of your battery. Take care of your electrical connections. Make sure that there's not any corrosion on there. Make sure that everything that you originally tightened down is still tightened down. This is not the most exciting tip, but it is a real tip, and it can actually, like it did for me, take a day that you said, hey man, I'm gonna have a blast, I'm gonna have a good time, brother, and then all of a sudden, you're sitting at the dealership while it's closed 2 or 3 hours waiting on it to open. A weak battery. Sometimes, like I've said with other things, that batteries are like brakes, are like tires, they'll give you signs. So if you go to start one day and it gives you that whoop, whoop, and then it starts up, that's an issue. You need to go have that battery either tested, you can buy tools to test it yourself, or take it to a shop or a dealership, a mechanic, and have them test it. Here's the deal, it could be a perfect day. You sit down, you get all your gear on, you get everything ready, and you go to start. Let's just say you've got an incline on the driveway. You back that motorcycle out because you don't want to start inside the garage and stink up your garage. Well, then all of a sudden you go to start it, and now you got to push that bike back into the garage. Motorcycles, they do not like weak batteries, especially today's modern motorcycles. They have more electronics than ever. So a lot of those things are going to constantly draw your battery. A bad battery or a bad connection, it can do all kinds of weird things, blinking and flashing of electronics or lights. So what should you do? How do you keep your battery in top performance? The first thing that I'm going to tell you that a mechanic told me is always have your battery on a battery tender. A charger, a trickle charger, a maintenance tender. And then for me, I've used the same one. It's just a plug into the wall. I want to say I've had this thing for 7 years and it is still running perfect. Especially if you live somewhere with extremely cold winters, or even just during the winter, that cold air is going to cause that battery to draw down. So you want to have it on a tender. Me personally, every time I pull the bike in, I put the bike on a tender, whether it's hot or cold outside. A battery tender is going to be one of the cheapest ways to protect your battery. And batteries aren't cheap, guys. You know, a couple $100 for the cheaper end to a lot closer to $1,000 for the expensive end, depending on what you're getting. Again, always check those battery terminals, check those connections. They need to be clean, they need to be tight. Look for that corrosion. Even a loose connection could cause your bike not to start. Again, don't ignore that slow cranking. If your bike struggles to crank when you hit that start, that lets you know that your battery's getting weak, and you don't want to be 80 miles away from home because 2 or 3 days earlier when you went to start your bike, it goes whoop, 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 and then it starts. And now all of a sudden, what happened to me happens to you, but you're not sitting in a dealership parking lot. You're ride 80 miles away with a group of folks and you're at a restaurant. Now all of a sudden your bike doesn't start after you've gone into the restaurant and you come back out. A motorcycle mechanic told me that a lot of expensive looking electrical problems start cheap with a small, simple battery issue. So tip number 4, keep that battery charged. Use a battery tender when your bike is sitting. Check your terminals, and if your battery has a sluggish or slow start, that's an issue. And don't ignore weak starts. Remember I told you about tip number 5, and I said it's going to seem so simple to you. Tip number 5 is going to be inspect your belts or your chains. Inspect your bike for loose parts, especially if you ride a Harley Davidson, because those things shake like crazy. Another quick story. I had a 1997 Fat Boy that I'm riding, and I'm going down the road during the daytime, and all of a sudden I hear something clank, and sounds like that either I ran over something or something hit the road. Well, I pull over the side of the road and I happen to look back, and I had a passenger on. We happen to both look back and we see a red looking reflector in the road. Well, because I didn't go through and just make sure that everything was tight, the motorcycle shook the taillight enough to where it actually backed the screws out and the taillight fell off, hit the road, and shattered. So then I had to drive, I think I was a good 45 minutes away from my home without a taillight on the back, which presents a whole new issue because it's extremely dangerous. So inspecting the belts and checking for loose parts, it's going to be one that a lot of motorcycle owners are going to miss. It's not one of those single glamorous motorcycle maintenance items. It's kind of more like a habit for you, and it needs to become a habit before you get on the bike. You look over your bike, you listen to what your bike's telling you when you're riding. You just kind of check things. Like for me, I probably could have walked to the back and just kind of moved around the taillight just to see if it was loose at all. You can do the same thing with your air cleaners. Just grab them and move them. They're not supposed to move. If they move, you need to tighten them back down, or there could be the beginning of a larger issue that if you catch it on the front end, it doesn't turn into an expensive issue. So let's start with the belt. On a belt-driven bike, you want to inspect that belt drive. You want to look for cracks. You want to look for missing teeth. You want to look for maybe rocks that have damaged it, that it got it in there. You want to look for debris. Fraying of the belt, you want to make sure it's not frayed anywhere at all. So if you're rubbing your hand over the belt, just kind of guiding your hand over the belt, and something pokes you or sticks you, then you're going to have a problem. If you hear chirping, if you hear squeaking, if the bike feels different or weird. You know how when you're sometimes at a red light and you hear that car pull up next to you and it's if you hear that on your motorcycle, you need to go to the shop. In the Harley world, we call it that classic loose stuff. Harley Davidson's vibrate, especially mine. It's a 2006 Fat Boy. It's a V-twin. And it shakes like crazy just sitting on it. It shakes. So while you're checking that stuff, check your mirrors. Make sure that they're tight. Check your bags, make sure that they're tight. So to add to this on number 5, you can check any accessories you have on your motorcycles, your phone mounts. I had an issue one time where I'm riding down the road and all of a sudden my phone is sitting in my phone mount and it falls, and I just happen to catch it. I just happened to move my hand and grab it and catch it. Well, the screws and stuff fell out, but they shook loose. So check your mirrors, check your pegs. Check your floorboards. If you have floorboards on a bike, your floorboards are only supposed to move up and down just like this right here. So if your floorboards are moving in this direction, then you're going to have an issue. So as I stated, Harley Davidsons, they do vibrate. That's part of the charm that a lot of riders like. It's part of the motorcycle and the motorcycle company's history and personality. So check your mirrors. That's an important thing. Your side mirrors, you don't want to go down the road, and I've had this happen too. The side mirror is sitting like this, and a couple miles down the road, it's all of a sudden sitting like this right here. Check your bags, make sure that they're tight, they're not loose. Check your exhaust shields. Make sure they're tight, not loose. Do that before you start the bike. Don't do that after a long ride and then blame me because you burned your fingers on a hot exhaust. Check your license plate. That's a big one too. A lot of folks forget about that. Check that license plate, make sure that it's on there and it's not falling off. If something rattles, if something buzzes, if something sounds different, something is giving you a clanking sound, you need to make sure you check that and find out if there's a screw loose or a screw missing. A new sound, a new smell, a new vibration, a new feeling in your handlebars, in your seat, make sure you pay attention to that as well. The bottom line is this, that you know your motorcycle better than anybody else. If something doesn't sound right, if something doesn't feel right, don't ignore it. Have it looked at. A motorcycle mechanic told me that a motorcycle will talk to its rider before something breaks. The problem is most riders, we don't listen. So tip number 5 is going to be, check your belts, check for loose parts, check your chain. Pay attention when the bike starts acting different and when something's vibrating or shaking that doesn't normally shake or vibrate. Let's recap the 5 tips from a motorcycle mechanic that'll keep your motorcycle in great condition. Number 1, check your tires. The tire pressure, tire tread, sidewalls, and the overall condition of your tires. Number 2, stay on top of your fluids. Engine oil, primary, transmission, brake fluid, and if your bike requires coolant, check that one as well. Number 3, inspect your brakes in your entire braking system. The pads, the rotors, the brake lines. Make sure that your pads aren't too thin. Remember, make sure that your pads aren't wearing unevenly, and make sure that your rotors don't feel crazy when you go to rub on them and fill them. Number 4, and this one's a big one for me, is maintain your battery, your electrical connections, and use a battery tender. Check your terminals and do not ignore weak batteries. And number 5, inspect your belt and check for loose parts on your motorcycle. With all 5 of these, a motorcycle mechanic has told me that your motorcycle is going to alert you and or warn you before something happens a high percentage of the time. The big message and takeaway, it's simple. Don't wait until your motorcycle is broken down, or you're having an issue before you start to care about maintenance. A lot of these checks are only going to take a few minutes, but it can save you time, it can save you money, and it can make your motorcycle much safer. So drop a comment in the description below if you think I've, number 1, either missed something that you would have put on the list, or drop a comment about a maintenance mistake that you've experienced before as well. I do want to tell you guys about my new logo. You see it in the corner over here. I've got new shirts. There's going to be a link in the description, and depending on when you see this video, there should also be a running banner with new logos as well. You'll see OMG MOTO on there. You'll see my fishing channel, OMG BASSIN logo as well. I've got new logos for both YouTube channels. For this channel, which is OMG MOTO, and the channel, which is OMG BASSIN. My son and I have been filming content for the OMG BASSIN as well. That will be coming out soon.
Stall.
So guys, if you haven't watched the footage, then that won't be.
Say bye, Hardy.
Bye, Hardy.
Oh, this is recorded, by the way.
I didn't think it wasn't recorded.
Okay.